It's no secret that I massively geek out on cycling, and I want to travel as fast as I possibly can while using as little effort as possible. Now there's so many tips and tricks that you guys can implement that's going to allow you to cycle faster and save watts. Now I've capped the price of the products I'm going to be using in this video at £150, as there's nothing worse than watching something that is unrealistic where people are spending thousands. I genuinely believe most people can save about 100 watts with very minimal effort and little time. Without further ado, let's just get into this and take a look. I'm going to skim through quickly all the things you can do for free with zero cost whatsoever. Firstly, if your bike looks like this, clean it. This is so inefficient, and it's going to massively affect your drivetrain efficiency. Literally, the difference between a really dirty bike and a brand new spankingly clean new one is 7 to 8 watts. Not only is it going to decrease your efficiency while you're cycling, but it's going to massively wear your chain and your chain ring out much faster. And if there's mud and grit and dirt splattered all over your frame, it can affect the aerodynamic efficiency of this, although it does depend from bike to bike and where the actual mud is splattered. Secondly, electrical tape is your best friend. For every inch or two of exposed cable wiring, you're going to be costing yourself 1 to 2 watts. Now, if you're one of these people that has this sort of entangled, wiry jungle mess at the front of your bike that is just all over the place, use a bit of electrical tape, tidy it up, compact it all together, and you're probably going to save around 5 watts from doing this. And the same applies for all those exposed bolts on your bike. Tape them up. This is going to smoothen out the wind flow and again, only save 1 to 2 watts, but all of these things add up and before you know it, you're going to be saving 20, 30 watts from just making these small individual little changes. Point number 3, bottle placement. Now the most common mistake I see people make is having a normal water bottle on their down tube, and literally every cyclist and triathlete has this, bar 0.1% who are actually sensible. Now AeroCoach actually tested this in the wind tunnel and they found out that having a bottle on your down tube is going to cost you 3.5 watts at 30 kilometers an hour and 8.1 watts at 40 kilometers an hour. This is absolutely huge. I would personally move the bottle from the down tube to behind your saddle. It's going to be much more efficient. Your body's going to be blocking it from the wind, so it's pretty much got a 0 watt cost. Now the last free tip is the leg shave. Now you might not be looking cool with those baby smooth legs, but trust me, it is effective and efficient. Both Swiss Side and Specialized have tested this in the wind tunnel, and at 45 kilometers per hour, you're saving 14 watts. Granted, 45 kilometers an hour is a little fast for a normal cyclist, but you still expect to save about 6 to 8 watts at those normal speeds that sort of the average cyclist is going to be riding at. Okay, so now onto the things that you can buy, and everybody loves a bit of kit and tech when it comes to cycling. I'm going to start with clothing and from the bottom up. So, just by wearing a pair of aero socks, you can save anywhere between 4 to 8 watts, and this is only going to set you back about £30. There's a few things you want to make sure though when you're wearing them. Firstly, you want to be a snug fit and tight so they're not moving all over the place, and you want them to be pulled up slightly so there's no wrinkles or creases in them because that's going to affect the wind flow. Next, we have a skin suit, and at the moment you can get a Castelli 4x speed suit for £158 or the Tri version for £146. That's pretty cost effective in my opinion. Now this will save you 15 watts from a normal kit and up to 30 watts if you're wearing really baggy, sort of not typical cycle clothing. Of course, there's more expensive options that you could consider, and there's some custom skin suits that are costing up to £5,000, but for 99% of the general population who are cycling, this is going to be plenty and absolutely perfect. Onto now your helmet choice, and option 1 is your sort of bog standard typical decathlon helmet. It's going to cost you anywhere between £10 to £35 depending on the brand and depending how it's made, and this is typically not going to be that aero. Now if you upgraded this to say option 2, which is the Aero Road helmet. Now for the purpose of this video, I'm going to be using the Giro Vanquish MIPS because there's wind tunnel data on it compared to other helmets, and it's just an easy basic helmet to use. Now upgrading from your typical standard helmet to this helmet is going to save you about 15 watts. Now that is massive saving, and to be fair on top of it, I think it looks pretty damn cool. What do you guys think? Let me know down below. Now if you want to go full beast mode with the cycling and look like an absolute weirdo on the road, which I do sometimes, but don't judge, you can go for the full-on TT Aero helmet, but there's a few things you need to consider first. If it doesn't fit properly, you may even be slower. You don't want the point of the helmet sticking to the side or sticking up. You want it to be flush and sort of in line with your back so the wind can just flow through it, not so that the helmet gets in the way, which you do see a lot of people having problems with. But a well-fitted time trial helmet, for example the Casque Mistral, which you can pick up on Facebook Marketplace for a relatively good price in the scheme of things. However, it is slightly more expensive to buy new online. I think it's about that £250 price point. You're going to save probably around an additional 23 watts. Well, that's what the data in the wind tunnel shows anyway. Although, like I said, it does massively depend on the rider and how they're wearing it. And finally, from an outfit point of view, we have aero cycle gloves. Now you're going to find it's more aerodynamic to wear these type of gloves than having nothing and having bare skin. For example, the Hoob ones, which were designed by Dan Bigham, literally the most aerodynamicist guru, or whatever you want to call it, on the planet. And he takes extreme care and caution in this category. So just from wearing a pair of these gloves, you're going to save in the range of 5 to 10 watts depending on the speed. Well, that's what Hoob have claimed anyway from wind tunnel data. So again, just changing the clothing that you're wearing, from the socks to the skin suits to helmets to the gloves, you can save anywhere from 40 to 80 watts. This is absolutely huge, and every piece of clothing and equipment that I've just mentioned there, you can get for around that £150 price mark. You are not spending hundreds and hundreds on this stuff. So I think that's a pretty good cost-effective savings. What do you think? Again, let me know down below. Last but not least, we have the tyre choice. I'm using a little book for this because I've got the data written down on it. And this is probably the most underutilized thing in cycling, where people just disregard it. Yet you can see the most cost-effective watt savings from changing your tyres. It is totally insane. In fact, it's pretty shocking how big of an improvement you can see just from changing your tyres. Anyway, let's get into it. So the difference between a top-of-the-range tyre with low rolling resistance, for example the Vittoria Corsa Speed tyre, and a typical endurance tyre meant for basically just getting the miles in, for example the Continental Gator Skin, you're going to see a 13 watt difference per tyre, or 26 watts for the pair. This is insane. This is just mega. Now, one of these tyres are going to set you back £75, so it's going to be £150 for the pair, but you're saving 26 watts from this. Now, this is pretty good bang for your buck. You've got to admit it. And considering everybody always wants to put so much emphasis on their $5,000 bike or $2,000 wheel set, which yes is beneficial, but there are so many other more cost-effective things that you can implement and buy that's going to help you save way, way, way more watts than a good frame or a good set of wheels. And honestly, if you're going to get a nice bike and a nice frame and a nice set of wheels or whatever, you may as well get all this free stuff and relatively cheap stuff first, because it just makes more sense. Now, if you enjoyed this video, drop it a like, subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you all in the next one. Cheers.